Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Horde. Welcome back to the Hudson Valley. Got a real beautiful day going on today. It's going to make it into the 80s, but the humidity is going to be low, which is just a wonderful thing. Check out that blue sky, no clouds, gotta love it. So, let's look at this clock. So it's about 10:30. It is June 23rd, Monday. This says 69.8. That says 69. And this guy says 20.7 when we're talking about Celsius. So there we are. And my batteries still aren't charged. It's got me a little concerned that they're not peaking out. Anyway, first things first. So yesterday, I guess I should show you guys. Yesterday I did not go to the flea market, but went over to a friend's house for dinner last night and wanted to stop and pick up, some stuff for a veggie platter and all. So on my way to the local Hannaford's, I passed a garage sale, so I'll show you guys some of that kind of stuff. But the purpose of this video is this guy. Remember, I bought this thing. Back up a little. I bought this thing the first weekend of May. It's a 70cc China quad, and I paid $50 for it. And the issue was the starter was no good. So I kind of poked around, and I was going to bag the starter, take one of the starters from one of the other bikes I have inside. And I was going to do that, 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 and I didn't do it. And then I had climbed in there, and I looked at the starters, and I wasn't sure they would fit. And quite honestly, I'd really rather not part out those bikes because they're more valuable whole, and it's easier to work on a project if you don't take half the pieces off and spread them all over the Horde. So I decided not to fool around with those. So I had sought advice from YouTube, and particularly William Statton, and I think Wally and a couple of you other guys indicated that these China quads are basically the same block, same starter, same automatic if that's what they have, same standard transmission if that's what they have. Basically all the same stuff. And the only thing they really do to change them up is change out the bore size and maybe change out the displacement, so maybe the crank. So I kind of put that information in the back of my head, and I was, like everything, slightly skeptical. But it turns out you guys were exactly correct. I looked up on eBay, and if you guys recall, this is the starter out of that. So this is the stator, the armature and stator. The gear, it's all fine. But the problem is the brushes melted, right? The brush pack here melted. So I took this off of, this is the old one, right? These two guys are the old one. And it turns out, this is off the new one, but it turns out you really can't get the entire starter off because it's got this chain drive to the starter, and I couldn't get this part out of the engine. For whatever reason, they describe themselves as a 2-bolt, and as I'm counting here, right, I count 1, 2, 3, right, 1, 2, 3, but they kept describing themselves as a top mount 2-bolt, which is one of the reasons why I really didn't want to screw, buy a starter and not have the right starter. But it turns out I said screw it. I bought the top mounting starter. It was $27. It was just under $22. Delivered, it was free postage. It was $21 and some change. Call it $22. And they sent me the starter, and it turns out it's exactly the same as the old one, except it doesn't have burnt out brushes and it's brand new. So that made homie very happy. So for $22, a little less than $22, I got the exact starter. So I took it apart because this part, right, is stuck on the engine, and this part is really no good. Well, I didn't completely take it apart because I don't want to slide the brushes out from the armature and have all those problems. So all I have to do is slide this onto what exists out there, basically slide it right onto that. Well, actually like that. That just slides right on like that onto the one outside, mount it all up, and I got the starter for that. When it comes to buying the Chinese parts for these Chinese quads, or China bikes and all of that, I've had pretty good luck with the universality of the carburetors. Basically, if they'll bolt on, they'll run. I have had some trouble with ignition pieces where the ad describes the ignition piece one way and you get another. Like I bought ignition modules that claim to be DC powered. Right, they needed 12 volts to make the ignition modules run, and it turns out they were not. They were powered by the stator in the the fields underneath the flywheel on the bike. Right on. So occasionally they do get ignition component descriptions wrong. So you always got to be careful what you're buying. But it turns out in the case of this starter, obviously if you could get a starter and it works for less than $22, man, that's a steal of a deal. And if I slam it in there and the bike starts up, throw a battery on there, once again I got $100 into the bike. That's not too bad, because a running China quad that looks halfway decent, it's worth a couple $100. Whether one takes it and you beat it around on the lawn, $200 worth to amuse yourself, or if you sell it to somebody for $150 or $200 and their kid beats it around for a while and they amuse themselves. So there we are. So the parts are out there for the China quads and the China bikes. All that stuff is out there. It's just a matter of looking at the pictures, looking at the descriptions, quite honestly, even looking at the feedback if you're getting stuff over eBay, and if it consistently says, the guy sent me the wrong part, you can start assuming that even if you're looking at the right picture and the right everything, that you might get the wrong part. You might also, if you're trying to, a little light goes on in your head and you say, oh, I could get these China quads and China bikes for almost nothing, and I could get the parts on eBay because Harvey Spooner says I could get a starter for $22 and I could buy these things for $50 and $22 to get them fixed, and I throw a battery on them. Boy, buy them, basically invest $100, get back $200. I'm going to get rich at this. Well, I'm also letting you know that you will not always get the right parts. So instead of having just $22 invested in a starter, you might buy the starter twice or 3 times, trying to get to the right starter, and you might have trouble. Obviously, you can send stuff back and, attempt to get a refund, but by the time you package up that $22 starter and slam, $7 worth of postage on it, or if it came from China, God knows how much postage you're going to have to slam on it to get it back to China, and try to get them to send you the right one, if they do send you the right one, or maybe they're going to send you another wrong one, or you're going to ask for a refund, and that's going to take forever, which means you're going to get all tied up with eBay. Perhaps I have the wrong thought process, but if you buy something on eBay and it's not right, in my opinion, you're kind of stuck. Obviously, if you buy, a $100 motor and they send you the wrong motor and all that, now you could contact the guy and say, hey, it's not nearly what you described. You know, I not only want my money back, but if you want this motor back, I want the postage that it's going to cost me to send that back to you, because this isn't even, you know, I asked for a Honda motor and you sent me a Yamaha motor, right? In that case, you might win and get yourself back to where you want to be. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm just showing you the following things, the ideas I want you to walk away from this video with. First of all, if you're changing a starter, it may pay, if everything's exactly the same, to not change the entire starter, because if you gotta break the engine case to, you know, remove the chain from the sprocket there, you can end up with oil leaks and all the additional problems, like you take the side of the engine off and something falls out, and now you're fighting that whole battle, right? So sometimes it's easier to change only what you need to change, and that's what I'm going to do in this case. So that's one idea I want you to walk away with. The second idea is that the parts are out there and they are available, but you got to be careful, because you may or may not get them on the first try. You might be ordering exactly what you think you need, described to be exactly what you think you're going to get, and then you can find yourself with a surprise. So make sure, if you're fixing stuff, that you have that in your mind and in your budget. You know, if you're fixing a quad and your profit margin is $25 and you got to order 2 starters or 3 starters, that profit margin is well beyond gone. So that's a second thing. Alright, I've been babbling for about 12 minutes. I'm going to let you guys go. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for subscribing. Hopefully, as the day wears on, I get this thing slammed on there, get the bike back on the ground, fire it up, and take it for a little spin. It's got the automatic in it, and, you know, hauling around my 190 pounds, it's not going to be thrilled about it. And quite honestly, I'm not quite sure why I bought the bike. I bought it because it was $50, and I'm like, wow, this thing is a steal. Look at me, I'm buying this bike for $50. But kind of now that I own it and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about it, I'm saying to myself, man, for even if I do get this thing running and I do move it in here, and boy, look at me, I got this, you know, 70cc China quad. It's probably worth more in parts than it is as a running unit, because in parts I can pull the engine off and slam it onto a golf cart, or slam it onto something a little bit more interesting than a tiny little China quad, right? Slam it onto a Barstool Racer, or I don't know, a redneck lawn chair, or even just something that I don't have to bend all the way to the ground to get on and off of for beating around on the lawn, right? So it's probably worth more in parts than it is as a whole. But, and by the way, this is my 3rd one, so how smart was I to pick up all these? All right, folks, anyway, take care. Remember, keep your feet down, keep your head up, live, love, and have a great time. And remember to enjoy your days on Earth, because they could be shorter than we all think. Take care, folks. Bye now.